Right, guys, welcome back. This is the Above Average FPL podcast. My name is Adam, and as always, I'm joined by Baker. How you doing, mate?
Very well, refreshed, mate. Had a little week off, so you were having a little jaunt with Nima while I was away. But yes, I've just been with the family, tinker for the last 4 or 5 days. It's been nice.
So you've been telling me as well. And we've got a very special guest on this evening. We have England's number one greatest ever FPL manager, and there's no need to be. What's the word? There's no need to sort of sugarcoat it or to play it down. It's 17 years of absolute phenomenal FPL results. He's on the Green Arrow podcast and from Fantasy Football Hub. Rich Clarke, how you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for having me on. Big fan of the show. I've been listening to your pod for a couple of years now. My Monday go-to, and really like some of the stuff you're doing. So thanks very much for asking me on.
So we can clip that we help England's best ever manager. Is this how we?
Absolutely. No, I really like some of the graphics on the show. Really like some of the particularly your review of each of the fixtures each week, where you talk through the XG charts and that kind of stuff. And I really like the content. So I think you've got a nice niche.
You said a couple of years there, Rich. When was your worst season in 17 years?
I think it was last year, actually.
Cut.
Yeah,
We'll edit that bit out.
Yeah,
Good.
thanks for bringing that up.
Oh man,
Yeah.
cheers to that. Yeah. I don't know where to go from there.
Yeah.
just throwing the whole pot in the pan.
Show the history, mate. Show the history. It's ridiculous.
Let's just go straight there. So, we've got 10 years worth of history for Rich here. He's actually been, you're saying 17 years of it. I mean, I'll let you read them off. Do you want to read them off the screen, Rich?
Oh, okay then. Yeah, I mean, last year was great. Managed to, thanks to your man Harry Kane, managed to get back into the top 10k on the last day of the season. So 5.8k finish. As Baker mentions, the previous season was my worst ever finish, 48k. Very up and down season. And then 14k, 7.8k, 14.5k. My best ever finish was in 2017-18 with the 263.
Ridiculous.
Previous season was pretty good, just outside the top 1k, etc. And we go on, but I'm that's enough. That's enough about enough about the ranking. But yeah, I'm very proud of it. It is. I think I'm the only human with 17 top 50k finishes. So that's always it's always nice to have a record that you can continue. But obviously, it becomes you have to repeat it each year. So it's getting harder and harder. There's a lot more out there, and but we'll go for it again next season.
Like, do people just? I was gonna say, do people just hate being in mini leagues with you? Like, it's...
well, I don't know. I think I've gone beyond the. One of the reasons I became a content creator and tried to get involved in the community was I did want to play against the better players that are out there. And I wanted to get in that Elite 64 mini league. And so I just thought, well, it was very much sort of like a Twitter, not a closed shop, but a Twitter invitational. And I just wanted to get involved in that. And I had to qualify to get into there and stuff like that. So I wasn't given an easy passage or anything, but I got in there and I think I came third in it last year. And it was just a bit unlucky not to win it, but it was, it's great. I just wanted to compete against the best. So I like that. I like that. I like the competition of it. I obviously like the community and the fact we have a lot of fun, chatting together and basically taking the mick out of each other and stuff. So that's all good. So I like that. But yeah, the days of winning the office mini league and taking 20 quid off suckers have long gone by, I think. So
You wouldn't let him in. Absolutely no chance. You'd be kicked out of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would not do that. How much do you fear having a blowout?
I definitely think it's possible for anyone to have a bad season, and particularly in in recent years, there's been a lot of really, really great players that have suffered, bad seasons, and they found themselves in ranked positions where they just can't recover, enough ground, So, Mark in particularly last season, very well publicised, coming back from sort of 5 million in the last half of the season to finish whatever he did, 150 something or something. It can be done, but you can never sort of fully recover, from some of the early positions. So I am conscious that, one day I will have a bad season and that it'll hurt. But I'm hoping that, I can just continue to at least finish in the top 100k for forever, I suppose.
We had a question on Twitter. FPL Aubergine said the obvious question: how on earth does he do it? What's the secret? Tell us how to do this, mate.
Yeah, I thought about answering this. I saw that question earlier. If I was going to give one, I do advise, other players on how to play. And the biggest piece of advice I give out consistently is about patience. So to be be diligent with your picks when you set your team up. Make sure they're players you are going to have in for the long run, and then be patient. Give them time to return. And I don't just mean a week or 2 weeks and then kick them out for a hit and get someone else in who's the new shiny toy. I just be patient with your team. I think FPL is quite a simple game, and I like to simplify it. So I see a lot of content out there that tries to bring a lot of tactical expertise and formational expertise and try and apply that logic across. There's obviously a lot of models out there and stuff like that, but I do have quite a simple approach to FPL in terms of, if I see a player I like who's getting involved, then he could be coming into the team. It's quite simple. I'll put him on the watch list, or I'll consider him for bringing him in, particularly if there's a run of fixtures whereby he'll have a chance to return. So I take quite a simple approach, and I'm very patient.
Is that, you keep a watch list then? Is that, because I've seen others mention the watch list. Obviously, General uses the watch list on his pod, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Is it part of the game? Is it part of the sort of the FPL setup that you actually use, or is it kind of just a mental? He looks all right. Let me think about that next week.
It's more mental with me. I'd love to say I've got this, this wonderful structure, and there's this database and this well-maintained spreadsheet of players or whatever that I've got. Yeah. But there isn't. It will be. I would look at the upcoming period of games, maybe the most 3 or 4 games in front, and say, who's got great fixtures coming up, who's on form, who's emerging. How can I get easily to someone without taking a hit from a price point perspective, and then just narrow it down. My way of playing FPL, I will admit, it does take quite a long time. I put a lot of hours of thinking about it, listening to content, just not making notes as such, but just looking at different patterns and so on and so forth. So it's quite a time-consuming approach that I take. I could probably make more efficient by using statistics in a better way, and so that's why I kind of started watching content like yours and watching other pods that have a more statistical bent to them, so that I can just sharpen up my own game.
You've been doing this for so long, in such a good way. What are your normal sources of how you make decisions and what you would do? Like, do you watch a lot?
I watch a lot of football. Almost every televised game. Obviously, for those who are watching internationally, we don't get every game in this country, and that's actually, if probably we did, I might find it even more time consuming, because I'd probably watch all of the games. But tuning into Burnley versus Luton on a wet Monday night, because you've got a defender, for one of those teams, that's a bit of a commitment, isn't it? Sort of like to try and grind out a 0-0 off your bench or something, but I will do it, and if I'm not doing anything else. So I watch a lot of football, look at a lot of data, on either the main website or the Hub or various other sources. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. You know, I pretty much I walk a lot, so I just put the headphones in and just listen to a pod while I walk. So pretty much there's daily content that I will consume, and yeah, I like a lot of the other I wouldn't call it rival content to the Hub. I think, you know, we've got a lot of complementary content, so yeah, it's good, all good. But yeah, lots of hours. I think my hourly rate for FPL is very low in terms of return. But yeah, it's a big hobby of mine.
Do you discuss it much with other people as well? Do you think you're quite a sort of lone wolf in decisions, or do you have like trusted little circle that you'll do? Do you get swayed by even like doing the pod every week and stuff? Does that sway you?
Yeah, I do. I think I find, again, doing the pod does, you know, sharpen me up and does actually help me with my own decisions each week. I mean, Adam Hofcroft is a great player. I think you know Adam. He's a top player, really, you know, really incisive, really, you know, mine of information. So he's great to work with. And I also I run a membership tier at the Hub, and so that's like a coaching service. So I have a number of clients that I help, and again, seeing their teams and seeing their situations and taking their questions and that kind of thing. Whereas some people might think that might, you know, just saturate me or drown me in information. It makes me very aware of what the rest of the game is facing and what the different team structures that are in place. I've always been someone that says, you know, look at other people's teams. It's an open game. You know, it's just like playing poker and being able to look at someone else's hand. I mean, it's crazy. You know, you can look at everyone else's team. Yes, you can't see the immediate transfer they've made, but you can literally go and mine however many teams you want to. And I think that's very valuable, having an appreciation for the other teams that are out there. So yeah, I get a lot of sharpening from the work I do, you know, in FPL.
Basically doing effective ownership before there was effective ownership. Just check everyone's teams.
I
Just
guess,
tally it up.
Yeah, exactly. You can see what people are thinking or what they're asking or what's concerning them and stuff. So yeah.
It's cool.
That makes sense.
Nice.
Talking about things like ownership then, so like ownership and analytics and that, like how much of that now goes into your thinking?
Yeah, less than some others. I've gained an appreciation of it. I respect it, but I don't rely on any. I don't rely on any single statistic. I see a lot of content that is very stats biased. You know, I'm not a. If you said, am I analytics or Grass FC? I'd definitely Grass FC. But again, I'm not anti-analytics FC. I just want to extract the good bits and help make sure that just validates my thinking rather than using it or just, you know, following a model. I actually think just prefer to play that way. You know, I trust my judgment, I suppose, would be a good thing to say that, but that judgment is probably based on watching football rather than looking at spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Good.
Good. And you can't really, and I can't really. This is brilliant. I'm just sort of absorbing all this information. I'm just sitting here listening intently. I'm doing the thing that you say you're doing with other people's, well, not necessarily doing with other people's teams, but you know, you're just gathering information. I'm just learning and learning and learning here. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
You said to us
I like data. I've got a data background. I used to work for an information company and, you know, process thousands and thousands of different sort of statements and company data and stuff like that. So I'm used to loads and loads of data passing through me. And so the more you throw at me, the more I'll just, you know, process it, I suppose. So it's all good.
I was going to say, you said before we started that fixtures play a big part for you, and especially, I suppose, start of the season. How do you set yourself up? Like, how important to you is the start to the season and setting yourself up in the right way?
Good. This is good. So the start of the season is vital, right? It's absolutely vital to get off to not a sensational start, but, you know, a good enough start so that you are able to, get your rank to a level where you can, get a good finish in the second half. So my target always is to just get the team in the top 100k by Christmas. Not that ambitious. You'll see people in the top 10k after 3 weeks, and they'll be tweeting about it and blah blah blah. But no, it's get the team in the top 100k by Christmas. That's a long time. That's half a season normally, sort of 18, 19 games. So that's the aim. That's the goal. And I don't pay too much attention to what happened in the previous season, other than just that premise that good teams, with good fixtures. So when you've got teams like Arsenal, teams like City, who dominated so much last season, that's probably likely to continue, wouldn't you say? So why would you not have at least 5 or 6 players from those teams in your first draft or your game week 1 team? Especially if they've got good fixtures, which they have. So it's just play the obvious thing in front of you. That might mean a bit of a template type team, but it's just logical. It just makes logical sense. So I like to set the team up. Play fairly safe. Don't be too much of a clever dicky, and and actually get out there in the peloton early on, and don't be down in 3, 4, 5, 6 millionth after 3 or 4 weeks, and literally play. And I've been there. I have had seasons where it's not gone well, and you've had to have that slow grind back, and it's really tough. That will slow you down by many weeks. But it's about staving that off with sensible decisions at the beginning. I hope I've answered the question.
No, it is there. It is there. Yeah. And fixtures, how do you look at fixtures? Like how many weeks?
Yeah. I look at the first 6 weeks, but with slightly more weighting on the first 4, because we normally get an international break after about 4 games. So I'll play more emphasis on the first 4, but I look at a 6-week window, and I just subjectively divide. I'll take a fixture ticker, but you've got to realize not all fixture tickers are the same, depending on what source you visit or what site you belong to. The fixture ticker will be sorted in a slightly different way. But I'll take a fixture ticker. I'll take my own view of the fixtures and the value of those teams, and I'll sort them into 3 buckets. These are the good teams, these are the maybes, and these are the avoids. And the avoids mean don't really go there unless you're, I don't know, after a starting 4 million player or a backup keeper or something like that, which is fine because you're just looking to get a bench fodder out of them or so on. But the maybes are really your maximum of 1 player per team, but the bulk of your team, 11 to 12 players, is going to come from that good bucket when you set it up, and there's absolutely no reason to go shopping elsewhere other than from that good bucket.
Is that an equal split of buckets, or is it?
No. At the moment, I'm looking at my scribbled down list. So my bucket, my good bucket for game week 1 is City, Arsenal, Brighton, Brentford, United. 5 teams.
Brentford.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Who play Tottenham, and that's probably why you haven't got them in your bucket. So Brentford plays Tottenham, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, Newcastle, Everton. But their home games are Tottenham, Palace, Bournemouth, Everton. So that gets them into the good bucket.
Into the good bucket. The next bucket?
The next bucket, the maybes, are Chelsea, Sheffield United, Everton, Liverpool, Burnley. And I heard you talk about Burnley the other week, and I agreed with what you said about cheap doublers and stuff like that. So that's your maybe bucket. And then the avoids at the moment, I've got Wolves, Spurs, Villa, Newcastle, Luton, West Ham, Fulham, Bournemouth, Forest. I think that's 20. And maybe
so it's
Palace.
Sorry,
Palace are on the bubble.
But as Tottenham are in the avoid, this has been lovely speaking to you.
Thanks, Ray. We'll end it there, shall we?
I mean, Do you have it split by attack and defense, or is that just like an overall fixture? Because I mean, I'm looking, and I will dive
I
straight
definitely
into
want you
that
to
Tottenham one.
argue with me on this one.
Because
This is just my...
let's dive straight into this Tottenham one, because
yeah.
I can see the argument for Brentford being a good pick on the attack, and we're all, loads of people are looking at Bumo.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad, it's a good fixture for Brentford in that respect. We've not that we've seen much from Ange, but we know what kind of football he's going to play. It's very front foot attacking, potentially leaves you exposed at the back, etc., etc. So we know that can work with teams like Brentford, who create big chances against defences who are short on numbers. It's a recipe there really for goals. So that's what going back. Is it more attack based, or is it more? Is there a defensive element to it in terms of your buckets?
Yeah, I think it's more attack biased, because that's the majority of your points are coming from attackers. So, and that's the most important positions to sort out. And I think we can also, the defense is coming out. Most drafts are pretty template at the moment when it comes to defense, especially now. Onana's entered the game and stuff. So basically, that there are, it's easy to pick the defense. So I think most of these, the thinking in this year in terms of these buckets are in relation to attacking returns, I would say.
So fixtures we like to use Legamane. He does really good. It's got a hop on, hop off on the opening fixtures, where it really highlights the good fixtures and sort of blanks out the not so good fixtures. And you can vaguely just about pick them out, or them if you're not. But Newcastle, for example, at home for Man City in game week 2 is one that's blanked out, but I don't think it's the worst fixture. As I think you go through all the way to go through to game week 9, and you've got like Brighton at home. Like any home game for City is not really a bad fixture and so forth. But there's Burnley, Sheffield United, Fulham, West Ham, Forest, Wolves, albeit in terms of fixtures, like 4 of those are away, the really good fixtures. Any concerns, like how many City do you think you end up with, and really how much do you trust Pep other than Haaland? I guess is it?
Well, I think there comes a times in there when a team is just so good that the fixture starts to matter less. I think if every team was the same, if every team was rated the same, the general rule would be, for me, why would you pick players from a team, and there's several of them here on this chart, who have 3 away games in the first 4 matches, when you can have players from teams with 3 home games in the first 4 matches instead. But every team is not the same, is it? Every team is not Arsenal or City, who are likely to win all their matches, or so therefore the fact they're away to Burnley, the fact they're away to Sheffield United, the fact they're away to West Ham, that doesn't bother me at all. The problem with City is who's going to play, and therefore it's like, Haaland also is now virtually an irrelevancy in the game, because everyone will have him and everyone will captain him. So he's just neutralised. So if you want any gains out of the City's fixtures, you've got to have another attacker. You simply have to, or you should have a defender as well. I mean, I think most of the algorithms are definitely biased towards getting City defenders in, but I think you've got to have another attacker. So therefore, which attacker are you picking? Now that's been made a little bit easier this year with Mahrez, I think, is the latest to go to the Saudi League, or is going to the Saudi League. Gundogan's gone. The competition for Foden's position is starting to reduce, so it could be and should be a good season for Foden. That's just what I think a number of us probably believe. So I think Foden is makes a good draft pick, given those fixtures, given the fact that he will be part of City's attacks. And therefore, if there's a goal involving him, you're going to benefit over people who've just got Haaland. So it's just that kind of, I think that's about as far as the logic goes for me, is have some more City attack for those first 6 fixtures.
And if we get leaked a player for game week 1, because we probably will, bear in mind it's the first game of the game week.
Yeah.
Is it rash to bring someone in from City if you know they're playing in game week 1, even if you think they're a minute's risk?
Look, if you hear, let's say you hear, I don't know, Bernardo's playing and Foden's benched, you're not going to keep Foden in your draft, are you, in that last 10 minutes?
But would you bring Bernardo
in? Possibly not, because there are so many mid-price midfield choices that are equally as good. So our problem is going to be whittling those down from like 9 candidates to 5, right? It's going to be, it's not like, I don't know, Foden's the only game in town. You can have Maddison, you can have Bruno, you can have Martinelli, you can have Odegaard, you can have any of these guys. All these guys are good players who could return massively over the first few weeks. You've just got to decide on that mix. But if you obviously that everyone wants to get off to a good start, nobody wants a non-playing first 11 player for that early game. So I'm more likely to take a player out if I hear he's not playing than maybe bring a player in who's a minute's risk for later. If that answers the question.
That does.
Yeah.
It does. So teams you mentioned maybe so Newcastle a straight avoid.
Initially, like many, I thought Botman's underpriced. Botman's great value for that 4.5 million bench insurance type player. But the more I look at the fixtures, if I've got them here, City and Liverpool in the first 3, Brighton away, Brighton likely to score, I don't think you need to go with Newcastle initially. Wilson could be interesting, but if you've got that 8 million striker spot covered, he's an easy move if he shows early form and that kind of stuff. So again, on the fixture side, I'd probably say no, certainly for defenders, because they've got City, Liverpool, Brighton, the 3 top scoring teams in last season. Not really. Don't really need Newcastle defender, do you? Straight away.
No.
I guess
where
that,
you're sitting on
just on that, because Newcastle's fixtures pretty much turn at a point where people could be looking to trigger a wild card. So,
okay,
is a wild card something that you consider in the first 5, 8, or 4 to 8 weeks, or is it something that you're looking to hold on to as long as possible, or is it something that you're factoring in? Because does it reduce your horizon of fixtures you're looking at, or how does that work in your mind?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, my general attitude to a wild card is keep it for as long as I can. Keep it till I need it. We're getting, you've got to remember you're getting a wild card for game week 1. So you wouldn't wild card, would you? You wild card for, I think, at least a sort of, 6 to 7 week horizon of optimizing, wringing as much value as you can out of that wild card. So you're only going to wild card if you totally messed up. You're only going to wild card if, you really have got it wrong. So definitely, I know, historically, and it's less so now, maybe because the markets aren't as volatile, but people want to build value in their teams. They, in game week 2, they want to jump on bandwagons and start, catching 0.1 rises and that kind of. I don't play that game at all. Price is irrelevant to me. There's always a route. There's always someone else you can buy, and especially with kind pricing like we've got this season, I don't think it's that necessary to build. If your team's doing well, the team value will naturally accrue anyway. So that doesn't worry me. So yeah, I'm more of a late wild card. I mean, I think I wild carded last year in game week 8, which was the week after I think the Queen died. But that was almost forced a week earlier. Most of us were waiting for an international break to do it, and the season just fell into nice quarters, didn't it, last season? It was like almost like not quite symmetrical, but it was very much 4 chunks.
Yeah.
And you could see it that way. And that was a special season because of the Queen's death, because of the World Cup, because of the extra wild card you got after that. So that was a bit of a freak season. When you've only got 2 wild cards, it's more valuable. So I would keep it until I'm in an injury crisis or until I can see a big fixture swing. You know, maybe after 7 or 8 weeks, that completely means an overhaul will be more effective.
Okay.
Need to ask about Liverpool, because you must have had a lot of Trent and Salah in your team for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about it?
I think Trent, in his new position, which we're all pretty sure he's going to continue with for the time being, is an exciting player. He's always been one of my favourite FPL players, arguably, probably historically one of the best FPL players you could ever own. It's the routes to points are great. He's putting in midfield, out of position, attacking returns, defensive returns. If you're not going Salah, I think you need Trent. To not go Salah and Trent is probably risky. So at the moment, I've got Trent in my draft and no Salah. And again, I think Will Thomas said something very wise. He said, you can always go anywhere off Trent, can't you? But it's harder to get to him. So put him in at the beginning, and if it's not working out, go to someone else and bank 3 million or bank 2.5 million. You can do what you like with that, can't you? So you can always move off him, but it's much, much harder to get to him. And I think we should think of him as a premium.
It definitely staves off a wild card as well.
Yeah.
Having one of those two. Probably got time for we've got, from the analytics world, as I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for FPL review to launch, which I don't know, maybe this week, I think maybe, but we had our first sort of version of it in the fact of Mikkel Tokvam, who runs. I'm a subscriber to Mikkel Tottenham. He does an Algo, which comes up with a list of his recommendations: keepers, defenders, midfielders, strikers. I like it. I think it's a really good way for her to just sort of look at it and say, it's like creates a watch list for me. I'm basically paying a guy a couple of quid a month to create a watch list for me. So I like that, and it just helps me to look at it.
He did those really useful fixture probability drafts, didn't he, last season, when there were all the double game weeks we didn't know when they were going to come and stuff like that. So I know Mikkel. He's a good guy.
He does, yeah. A couple of quid a month is what it is. It's fine. I'll do it. But that got released. First one came out. I was like, oh, we're now in the start. And our friend Sertaup, who produces our XG charts for those that when we get the season started, he ran it through the solver and created it. I did make him exclude 2 players. I made him exclude at the moment Zinchenko, and I made him exclude James. Only the fact that they haven't started playing yet. And I'm like, the thing with the solvers is they change every day, everything. So if you do out Mikkel's thing, you'll get it another one in a couple of days. You'll get another one in a couple of days. And when the season gets, you'll get a new one every day. So I'm like, do it now with players that are actually playing and see where you're at. So he created a team for us, and I think it's good, interesting things to look at. So we got that, Adam?
We have, mate.
I'll let you read.
Yeah, cool. So I've got it on Pete's FPL.team. I've got it on his site here, and so
You can read it out, Adam, for the.
I will read it out for everyone. Yep, sure. I've got Ramsdale in goal, Gabriel, Stones, and Trippier in defence. You got Mbumo, Mitoma, Sterling, Bruno, and Rashford in midfield. Haaland and Jesus up top, with a bench of Hennessy, Ake, Porro, and then Surridge on there. And this is really interesting. Like, no Arsenal midfield feels weird here.
Mm-hmm. Weird.
That's weird.
It looks
so it's
really
double
strange.
Arsenal defence and Jesus, no Arsenal midfield. It's no Liverpool at all. Yeah.
It's double City defence as well.
It's not bad though, is it? It's a pretty good team. I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, Sterling's probably the biggest surprise based on a couple of pre-season friendlies.
Well, it's based on expected minutes. So he has currently under Tottenham an expected minutes of 80 minutes per game. So they're basically expecting him to start. I do get that. His whole career, whenever he started, he very, very rare. Even Pep never subbed him. Literally never subbed him. You know, I remember used to look at his average per start, and it used to be like 87, 88 minutes. So therefore, you know, he does have a fitness that if he's starting regularly, he will play a significant number of minutes. So that immediately, you have a guy that has once been 12 million. He's got, you know, he always gets XG, you know, where even for Chelsea in the minutes he's played, he always is involved in it. He's priced at 7 million.
Yeah.
And this is based on a 7-week fixture run. And we know that, look, those first 2 games aren't the greatest. Be interesting to see, you know, for a different team, for Chelsea, how he plays against Liverpool, because it was always a bit iffy for City against Liverpool. But after that, you know, game week 3, game week 4, 5, 6, 7, it's a really good run. You know, personally, I don't see myself starting there, but it is one that when I see these, I look at these and think, how would I get there in game week 3? Because when I look at the midfielders that most of us have got, you've either gone under on Matoma and Bumo, for example, and I probably can't get myself up to it unless you were coming off, say, a Trent, for example. So an example might be that you'd move off, say, a Trent, but to look to get him in at 3. But chances are you're not going to do that in game week 3 because their fixtures, you know, Bumo and Matoma's fixtures are decent in game week 3. So I don't see you doing it early. I don't see any of us coming off the Arsenal midfielders or Man United ones. So it's like if you don't start with Sterling, you probably don't get him in that game week 3. So I get it, but what I like about looking at these early on is that I go, this isn't everything that I've seen on Twitter, and
no, it's the first draft I've seen with Sterling in it.
And first with Trippier in it.
Yeah.
So it's got double City defence, one on the bench in Ake. It's got Pedro Porro stashed, so it's got 2
playing, you know, potentials, high scoring defender, not high scoring, but potentially decent returning defenders there. So it's a strong bench compared to some.
Yes.
But Trippier is kind of trumping the fixtures there, you know, so that's interesting that the algorithms decided that. So it's an interesting team. It's an interesting team.
Double Arsenal
defense. I like a lot parts of it actually. But I'm a little bit surprised at the lack of, you know, an Arsenal midfielder. I think I'd rather have an Arsenal midfielder than Jesus. So I'd probably, you know, lessen the priority on Jesus and get an Arsenal midfielder in there. And I actually I'm starting to quite like some of these Chelsea options, but I think it works well because I just think we want that couple of weeks to some of Chelsea supporter. You get a couple of weeks to see how they go, and then move. If it's all good, and you can see, and you guys obviously know Poch. If Poch has got it sorted early, then jumping on for Luton Forest, those 2 home games. I think that's the time you go Chelsea, not straight away. Not with Liverpool first up. You don't have to. So I would be quite happy. I'm not going to lose sleep over not having Sterling for Liverpool at home. So I think it. You know, this chap, was it Jackson? Is it? He scored yesterday, or you know, and then and Kunku's got a couple already, and so these are nice options. But I saw that Chelsea team that played yesterday, and I hadn't heard of half of them. It's a completely different team to what we were looking at, you know, last season. So you don't actually know. It's probably quite a risk to go Chelsea for game week 1.
I think they're definitely a risk. I watched the game, and Kunku doesn't feel like a number 9 to me. In terms of how they play, they tried to play quite a lot of hold up ball to him, and he just got bashed off. That was not work. You know, against big old centre backs at Brighton, they were just too big for him. Like he got bashed about a bit in that sense, and so you think go up against Canate and Van Dijk, he'd be like, nah, I don't think you play him at the number 9. So that's whereas Jackson, very much number 9. He was really good at hold off play. What I saw from him, I was pretty impressed with Jackson from what I saw of it. And then you've got kind of then 2 guys that would float around him that makes more sense. So Mudryk and Jackson linked up really well. But that's Mudryk off the left, and Kunku would also be off the left, whereas Sterling's more on the right. So again, minutes what you've got 3 into 4 before you even look at any other sort of players there. That's you got Madueke to come, and there's all sorts of options. Chilwell was the one for me easily in the game. He got so far forward on that left hand side repeatedly, and you were like, "Whoa!" I looked at that and was like, if if Chilwell's up against Canate because Trent's tucking in, yeah, I got no issue. I come away thinking I'd have no issue with starting Chilwell in game week 1.
Yeah. But then again, if Chilwell, they always same as James, same as Chilwell, they're made of glass. These guys, you might be lucky enough to own Chilwell or James for let's say a sustained period of 3 or 4 weeks when neither of them gets injured or one, but they get injured all of the time. So basically, I think quite not that I'm planning a transfer, but if say you're not sure about Liverpool, you want to move money around the team, Trent to Chilwell, save a transfer game week 2, Trent to Chilwell game week 3, 2.5 million plus whatever you got in the bank to do a big move, restructuring move. Maybe you can even get to Kane or something, at that point, and all of a sudden do a double transfer and move the money around and switch Trent to Chilwell if he's flying, but is he going to be flying? We don't know, he might be injured by then. So
it's definitely coached. It's definitely. I mean, Poch is definitely coaching him in that way. I mean, I don't know whether you saw as well. Chilwell did like an on-field mid-game interview with the.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
did he?
He
No,
did. He did a mid.
Like the golfers do with the AirPods. And stuff.
Yeah, literally like that. It was literally 68th minute, and he was there with headphones on at the side of the pitch, and the commentators were asking him questions about, is it something that Pochettino's directed him to do, or is it just part of his game? And he said, to be honest, it's both. Like, it's literally Pochettino's telling him to get as far forward as he can, and it's part of the game that he enjoys the most. So it all just like screams good things for FPL.
Fantasy
and as you say, as long as he's fit, right, then yeah, I mean, he's not. I wouldn't say he went under the radar or was not. Well, I suppose he wasn't really in my thoughts because my mind just went to James automatically. But yeah, Chilwell's potentially definitely an option. Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt there. And as you say, game week 3. I mean, we spoke with Danny last week, or was it last week?
I that was a good pod. That I like that.
Yeah, and that game week 3 transfer does look prime for a Liverpool to Chelsea. It does look prime for it. Yeah,
it's prime. It's whether you just have it or not. I'm tempted at the moment. So I've currently moved. Don't have Trent currently, and I have Stones and Chilwell. And somebody ends up on the bench potentially in terms of where we're at. That's where I'm sitting at the moment with it.
And I think that's fine from a structure perspective. I think it's fine to have that kind of. When people say, "Oh, 4-4-2 is not the way to go," but actually, if you've got that strong fourth defender, when you've got an injury-prone player like Chilwell, if you've got Stones on the bench or you've got Stone, it's fine, isn't it? Because you're covered. You don't have to go to Botman or you don't have to go to your 4.0. You've basically got those interchangeable 4 or 5 players. It's almost like a stupid animal wants to be ubiquitously in every team. But if you don't have Trent, and having 4 5.0 5.5s is also another way to go.
Yeah.
So and it gives you that cover. I've always been a player that would have a strong first bencher. Spend that extra $500,000, have a decent first bench, because none of us can predict 11 out of 11 every week to start. There'll always be someone that doesn't play. So yeah, sounds good, Baker, what you've done.
So Arsenal midfield, Bruno. I would say on Bruno.
What do you guys think of the to ask you a question? What do you think of the Bruno Rashford double up? Do you think it's too much, or are you choosing?
Oh, I like it. I just think me and Adam will get swayed on to one of Son or Madison, which might mean we don't have enough players to get there.
I think Rashford's more important for that very reason, just for the price.
100%.
So Rashford would be I think Rashford, starting with Rashford for me is a priority. Bruno's in my current draft at the moment, which is the same one that I had a week ago. And in my multiple of planned transfers, a Son transfer was in there. So it's just to make sure that I've got that in me to be able to do that. That said, I mean, if you're coming off of again, you go back to this like Trent to James or Trent to Chilwell job, you've got all the money in the world to do whatever you want. So I don't think you have to choose, particularly at the start. And as you know, I think Tottenham is still a wait and see as well. I want to see us against better sides in a more competitive. You're not going to get that pre-season. Like, it just isn't going to happen. So we need the Brentford game. We need the United game to actually show us what potentially we could be looking at. And of course, that's still small sample size. But, again, as the team plays more, whether it be Tottenham or anyone, the team is going to get better and better and better. And that's why we have more information later on in the season than we do at the start, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So I'm still very much start with both United boys. That Wolves fixture at home is just perfect. Like, if you want a good fixture, it's Wolves at home.
Yeah,
they're doing absolutely nothing at the moment by the looks of it. They haven't done anything, have they? Transfers, Matt Doherty, maybe.
Yeah, Doherty. Yeah, well, you guys know Doherty. I mean,
because he's a big defensive.
Have they priced Doherty yet?
4.5.
4.5.
Oh, he's 4.5. Is he? Okay, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he's got to be worth considering.
The only thing with United, watching them last night, so I watched the first half of both games. I watched the first half of the Man United Arsenal game, and so they set up. It's like they've gone like a full American football team in a way. The way I saw they were trying to play is, and they Ten Hag talked in the week about their history is about being a real strong transition team, and they want to be the best transition team in the world. And I think we saw a lot of that last season. And part of that relies on, say, Bruno will drop deep and play some good balls. Now, what they have got the ability is to sort of almost rotate that person, but they effectively played like 3 at the back, then somebody, and then 6. So we've done, as we talked here about, like 3-2-5 teams and, the way those plays. But this was like a 3-1-6 formation. And one of the fullbacks, now it looks like Wan-Bissaka at the moment, if he's the fullback, then rather than Dalot, then I think that's really good for Shaw, because they play 3 at the back. And then Shaw was literally released to go full left wing. But the person that often dropped in front of the defence was Bruno. Now, This is before Casemiro comes back, and it was, and he went. But sometimes he didn't. There was a really good chance early on where he made the forward run, and he set up Anthony, who can't finish. So that didn't end up in a goal. So our good old friend Pranil, he loves Anthony, but I'm not going anywhere near Anthony at any point. So I just don't rate the finishing of the man. But he takes turns where suddenly what they've got, because they're attacking in a 6, is they've always got an extra man on it. Now, you come up against Wolves and they sit in. It's quite hard to transition a team that ain't getting out. And that's what, like it was really easy to transition Arsenal, because Arsenal kept running at them, and every time they run at them, they just went bang, bang, ping past you, and they got no pace at the back. Like, not really. Like, people would say Gabriel's a quick centre back and Saliba's a quick centre back, but they're still quick centre backs. They're not pace. Do you know what I mean? If someone, a quick winger gets up against them, they ain't got no chance. So Sancho just bullied them for that goal where he went through. He was like, see you later, I'm off, and smashed it in. So transition teams, I was like, yeah, they're perfect to play against Arsenal. But Wolves ain't like if Wolves sit in, I'm like, well, it's probably fantastic for a clean sheet because they're just going to camp them up there.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure that it is necessarily the perfect game for them. But hey, Bruno, I think if he plays that quarterback role, he's going to be even better on the bonus than he's ever been because he's just going to get his pass completion. He's going to set up.
And
so
you guys,
you
guys did a great pod last season on BPS and just on understanding how BPS is made up, and I learned a lot from it actually, to be honest with you. So if you think that, then that's really good insight. Really good insight.
Yeah, I think he's going to be. I think Bruno is going to be a better asset than he was last season because I genuinely got the feeling that Man United will be a much better team as they were last season. Yeah. So yeah, Bruno. Would I do it? Yes. I did consider about the double up in defence about Onana and Shaw, but
I think that's too much. I think you choose there. I think it's fine to choose. I had Shaw. I mean, it's been in everyone's draft at some point, but yeah, just being able to,
to still have the option of having both as well in midfield. Because if they just become, because even at the price we've got, because what was the prices last season? 6.5 for Rashford and
Rashford was ridiculous. I think Bruno was 10.5.
10.5.
Yeah.
So they were effectively 17 million last season, and they're 17.5 this season. Like, is there's still a well affordable double up. I'll be more than comfortable with having both. But I do think I'll get sucked in on Son, which would be the issue.
I think I think you've just got to, as I say, we've got so many, 9 or 10 great options in these price brackets that if you choose to go to Arsenal or to United or an extra City or Madison, you can always change it. That's the thing. You can always change it. But you just got to think: how am I setting up to start the season? How does it look the first 3 or 4 game weeks? And which bet am I going to place? Am I going to go with Arsenal? Am I going to go with United? You'll see a lot of United fans. Will have them both. They'll have the double up. And there are a lot of United fans in the world.
There is a lot of United fans.
Yeah. So, but it's not essential to have them both. But if you fancy it, there's nothing wrong with it because you can always go. You can always go somewhere else quite quickly.
Better look at your draft, mate.
Before we do that, for everyone that's watching, listening, if you have enjoyed this podcast with Rich Clarke, then please make sure you drop a like on the video. If you want to see more from us this season, we'll be doing an off the weekend podcast every Sunday evening, which will be live streamed on YouTube. Drop us a subscribe. You get a notification when we go live, and then you can come and join us, as Rich has mentioned. Talk through all of the XG plots through all the games and a bit of a review on the game week then. And comment down below what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and get involved in the conversation. And we will move to Rich's draft.
Okay, shall I read it out for the benefit of the pod listeners?
See, look, you're an expert content creator. You are, Rich. You know exactly what we need to do. Read it out for the benefit of those listening. Good man.
I will do. Okay, so as of yesterday, my draft is Onana in goal, Estupiñán, Trent, and Gabriel at the back. I have a 5-man midfield of Foden, Bomo, Maddison. I'm going to talk about him in a second. Saka and Rashford. And then a front 2 of Evan Ferguson and Erling Haaland. And my bench at the moment is Areola, I think, at West Ham. I think I've got Rico Henry in there as a 4.5 million defender. And Bayer of Burnley and Archer of Villa. So pretty cheap bench, but, with an emphasis on definitely having a playing, reliable first bencher. So, yeah. Well, thoughts, boys? What do you think?
It's a good team.
It's a good team.
It's a good team. I like that. I like that I like that the flexibility's there as well with every side. I mean, the thing that I notice immediately is you're not tripled up anywhere. Like there's definite opportunity to move to a third asset if such person comes up. Whereas by picking 3, you'd block yourself potentially from doing that, and you'd take hits, etc., etc. So that I notice immediately. Yeah, Maddison in there.
Yeah, and I put him in because I actually wanted to understand how enthusiastic you guys are about James Maddison as a a long-term pick. Now I've said obviously put Spurs in my just inched into my avoid bucket from my maybe bucket, but if you can persuade me that the fixtures you quite fancy the fixtures and you think they set up well for Tottenham, given your additional insight into how Tottenham play and will set up, then I could actually be persuaded to stay with Maddison. I think he's really good value. I think he's exactly the player that Tottenham need in that creative department. And if Kane stays, I think he's a great option. But you've got to be patient. You've got to hold him through those first 6 weeks, I think, to see the returns. I don't think he's someone you have him in and then you sell him after 2 weeks. So that's just my view. But I'm really interested in what you two think of Maddison.
It's so hard on Tottenham. We literally have had one game where
and this morning's game got postponed, didn't it? So
this morning's game postponed. We made 11 changes at half time. But what we do know is kind of as a style. So it was so dramatic a change of anything we've seen from Tottenham in the last 3 years. That we haven't dominated a game like that in terms of possession, in terms of chances. Yeah. Good 3 years, probably. We may have accumulated good XG sometimes under Conte, but we did it through generation of really big chances. We didn't do it through dominating a game. So to have a game where we're like 70% possession and 30 chances is completely unheard of. So to do that on day one is like, let's see what happens here. Didn't get to see that today. Wednesday we've got now our next game, so we'll see. What you definitely saw was a lot of intricate passing. I think I'm 100% sure that from what I watched there, that it doesn't necessarily mean that Kane would score less points, but I think Kane would get considerably lesser share of the points. It might, you got to remember that nobody else got any points last season. Nobody else got any points.
Carried the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of its proportion of the XG, its proportion of the points, that will definitely dwindle if he was to stay. That doesn't mean his total points would go, because, as I said, he could still do well. But the amount of intricate passing we did, the look for movement, he naturally will drop deeper in that circumstance for it. He's a good decoy for us to use in terms of making those moves. I thought, my immediate thoughts were, this really suits Son and this really suits Maddison in terms of playing, because they're just really clever players and how they are. So that's just a snapshot of what we've seen. He's going to be good. He took corners on one side. Now, we'd expect that to continue. Son would have taken them from that side, from the left side. So I wouldn't expect when Son comes back in that he would take them off Maddison. And I don't expect that Perisic would take him off him if Perisic was playing. I don't expect Perisic to play, to be honest. So I'm expecting he gets at least one set of corners. And Porro took the other side, and we don't even know if Porro will start, really. Whether it be Royal or Porro or both. So he might have both sides. He's going to take a load of set pieces. He's definitely going to be really good on the bonus. He's definitely going to create loads of chances. That's the thing. We created 30 chances against West Ham.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think I sent you a little thumbnail of those stats. There was the amount of chance creation from Tottenham was huge. Despite losing the game, it was dominant. Look, I didn't see the game, but the stats looked like you absolutely bossed it.
The game played out. The game played out exactly like that. And there's only there'll be a lot of people that rightly say you take pre-season with a pinch of salt. But again, Baker mentioned it's more about the style and the way we played the game. The result. I can't say that if we'd have won 5-0, I'd have said the result was irrelevant. I think that'd probably be a little bit difficult for me to say it, but it still kind of is. It still would have been. I think generally I was just very happy with everything that happened, bar a couple of headers, basically, and then one runaway goal. That's like literally it. And so, everything's good. I wonder how that's going to work. I would assume that Maddison would move to the right-hand side because Son will play on that left-hand side. And
I don't know. I think Son will come into where Solomon was on the left wing.
Okay, that makes more sense.
But we don't know. We don't know enough. And we'll know a load more over the few weeks. But what I know is if we play intricate passing, it's going to be good for Maddison. It's going to be good for Son. It'll still be good for Kane.
Have you both considered Maddison for you in your drafts, in your game week 1 side, or are you waiting and seeing just to see how Spurs go?
Yeah, no, potentially. But I think it would be like there's Maddison or Foden way in my world of where that would be. I think there's room for one of them. Again, also it leaves that I like the price point that gives me an option that I could go to Sterling if it just looks irresistible. For them. I suppose my interest in on those cheap midfielders looking at these ones is Brighton, because watching Brighton last night reminded me just how good De Zerbi is. Like they bashed up Chelsea from a chance creation side of it. Like that you couldn't stop them. Like you could, they got a man sent off and they still just carried on creating chances. You know, they could create 15 chances compared to Chelsea's 8 last night. You know, they're relentless. They just smash them up. You know, Welbeck looked unbelievably sharp in that first half.
Right. Okay. So in that case, you know, so if you look at my draft and you see Ferguson's in there, I know you like Ferguson, Adam, as well. It's like,
we love him.
Obviously, the minutes risk with Welbeck starting that first game, because you really want your Brighton players to play that Luton game right in the first game. And if he goes with Welbeck and Ferguson's on the bench, you're thinking, well, you know, I've not got Gabriel Jesus in here. I've not got an 8 million player. I've gone with a player, you know, who is not always going to start, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So if you just take this team and you literally go Maddison to Mitoma, and you go, and this has got 1 million in the bank, by the way, and you then go Ferguson to Jesus, you just turned it into the template, haven't you? You just literally turned it into the template. And it's like, does that necessarily mean it's right? But, you know, from point of view of what is the Brighton lineup going to be, you've got these interchangeable strikers, because this Undad chap's been doing pretty well as well recently. He's been scoring a lot in the late season, so they could go with anyone.
It does well whenever he comes in. João Pedro came on for Welbeck. I don't know what the deal was then, Ferguson, because he was named on the bench, but didn't come on. So I don't know what the deal is with that, because they made 8 substitutions last night, but he wasn't one of them that came on. I didn't recognise any of the names of the other guys that didn't come on. I thought just looking at setup, I thought Dahoud. I don't know if it's Dahoud. That's how you say it, but I thought he was excellent as a sit in the middle playmaker of you know, that's a given. He won't be an FPL option, but I don't even
know who you're talking about. Who?
Dahoud. They signed him from he used to be at Dortmund.
Okay, I don't know.
Lallana was back and was in the 10, and Ciso was benched. Therefore, Solly March looked really good on the right. I mean, he played first half, but Solly March looked really good on the right. Mitoma looked ridiculous and still does those stupid stuff of being unbelievably good off set pieces, like to set up Welbeck for the first goal with a back post header. You know, it's just quality as a player. Like, he makes it very hard, but João Pedro looked good, and I was just like, God. You've got Lallana back, you've got Enciso not even starting, all these things. You've got João Pedro, you've got Welbeck, you've got Ferguson, and I'm like, God, it's tough. It's just tough. It's a tough call on that one.
I mean, if you look at the fixtures, right? So Luton at home, Wolves away, West Ham at home, Newcastle at home, Man United away, Bournemouth at home. 4 in the first 6, 4 decent games at home in the first 6.
Yeah.
I got a bit, not of a wobble, but I had to think about Brighton. I thought, why did we all own Brighton? It's because they had 5 double game weeks in the last part of the season, and so it was just ridiculous not to own 3 Brighton players during that run-in. But when you look at those fixtures and you look at how they play, is it stupid not to go with 3 Brighton for game week 1?
Is it stupid to not just have Matoma and March?
Yeah.
Like we didn't hate it last season. They were Matoma and March were everything to them last night. You know, and in terms of going at Chelsea, I still think they're the main men. If you said to me, right, who can I have? I don't know. Like I feel like it's almost we almost say we have to have one. I'm not 100% against just starting with both Matoma and March. Watching them last night. And if you want differential, March is like 3% owned.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to remember that since De Zerbi came in, I mean, it's not just the fact that we had all those double game weeks. Now, they were obviously good picks for us for that, but they still created more XG than any other team since De Zerbi came in.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think maybe bar Liverpool, maybe.
But
they just create lots and lots of chances.
It was pretty much above 2 every week, wasn't it? It's always above 2.
They're still bargains, Brighton, but get the ones that play. And I immediately come. Look, it might change over the next few weeks, but if Evan Ferguson doesn't start playing 90 minutes every week in the friendlies, then I just don't see I can do that option, which is a bit of a worry because then I'm looking at Nkunku at 7.5 and thinking, I'm not 100% sure he can lead the line, especially lead the line in game week 1. Darwin is obviously a minute's risk. By the way, I've just had alerts on my phone. Wissa has just scored against Fulham.
That's on Sky, isn't it? That game. It's on.
Yeah, Fulham Brentford. Fulham scored after 2 minutes, by the way, for those with Brentford defence. Harry Wilson. But yes, Wissa has equalised after about 18 minutes. So maybe it's better that way. Like you've got there for 6 million Ferguson and 6.5 million Bumo. Maybe we go the other way around. Maybe it's Wissa and Matoma for the extra 500,000. Like, let's see where we go with that one. But yeah, I'm firmly in the camp of Evan Ferguson is not an FPL option right now.
Okay.
Until I see any other reason
because of the minutes. Yeah,
that's fair. And I think
Pedro was good, mate. Was really good.
I did see that. I mean, for someone like me who's sitting on Ferguson as well. I mean, I'm right now. I'm sitting on 2 Arsenal midfield. You know, it's like, do I sit here and go, do I want Odegaard and Ferguson, or do I want Mitoma and Jesus? I think it's too.
I think the safe way to go is. The safe pick is to go Jesus for those first fixtures and just be as long as you frame out that this is you're gonna move. He's gonna be one of your pivots. You're gonna move off him in the first few weeks to either a different price point that's emerged, or you can go anywhere off him. That's the nice thing about it. And the Ferguson, there is an element of risk with the Ferguson pick. It's more that's more of, I think we've maybe got a recency bias or something, Adam, from the the brace in the game.
We rate the player. We all rate the player. Like we all think he's brilliant.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just worry. Yeah, and that's probably making it worse because I worry like when will I ever go to him? Like, will I ever go to him? Because I mean, we haven't looked at fixtures beyond game week 8 yet, really. So there's we're not thinking beyond that. So I'm sure there will be an opportunity when he is playing and they do have good fixtures and we can get there. But I'm coming around to the point where I'm coming around to the realization is probably not the best place to start.
There's a lot of people with Ferguson, a non-playing striker, 4.0, and then or 2 4.0 defenders and stuff like that. And I'm like you suddenly need to do a hit just to try and fix that game straight away, or you're never getting to your 2 striker. I'm very much wavering on the idea of it. Saying that, I solved it on my team by putting in Julian Alvarez, who's definitely still a rotation risk. But but I've been, I've just been reading more and more about Pep, and the idea is there's a lot of a feeling by some big journalists that he wants to play a front two this season, which is interesting because I would have thought he would then potentially look to buy in that world. It sounds like Elise might be a target now for him, but Julian, for me, I've just slid him in at 6.5 because I had the money to, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, I just think he's a very good player. I keep telling ourselves that we said it last season many times. He's older than Erling Haaland. He's a World Cup winner. He's come to play. I don't think he sits around for long. But if they sign another right winger, then you start thinking, I'm not sure about this. And KDB was on the bench today as well, which it doesn't sound like, although that wasn't really on the bench, was it? Because he's on the bench, and then he said he's still not fit to play the next game, and then he might play the game after that. So it's a bit like I said about that Evan Ferguson. I'm assuming he couldn't play today. That like De Bruyne was on the bench, but he couldn't play today. He's just toured with them. On Arsenal, the Jesus bit, the bit for me is that I really struggle when I'm watching him to look past Martinelli. He was comfortably the guy that got all the chances last night.
Right. Okay. I've not watched any. I was at the Open, so I wasn't watching football yesterday. But it was on the Green Arrow on Thursday. Martinelli was in my draft alongside Saka, so I'm absolutely considering those two in that double up. I think it's difficult to have Rashford, Bruno, Martinelli, Saka, but if you're going to go 2 Arsenal versus 2 United, then those two are for me are the best two, because he's so attacking. He just goes for it, doesn't he? And I really like Martinelli. I really regret selling him, in that time when we were all worried about Trossard, and we all did it. It was just a trap, wasn't it? Yeah. And he just was on fire afterwards. And I think 8 million. He's still great value.
Oh, he's a bargain, mate. He was so good. The problem is all roads do point to Jesus. They really do, because everyone else is a bit that you can find reasons underneath it why you don't quite like it. And then obviously it does mean it's a lot easier to have the Bruno pick. It's much easier to have Bruno if you don't have Martinelli. And I can see myself leaving it, but I'm at the moment repeatedly telling myself, in fact, if anything, at the moment, I'm repeatedly telling myself that Jesus is the first Arsenal midfielder that I want, because that's how it looks when I watch it. I can't see me not going in with Saka as well, but I'm struggling. I'm looking for options in striker. We talked about it last week, and I was like, I don't really want to look for that £6 million striker till I know it arises. But then you see a few shiny toys that you want to get in your team, and then you're like, I'll just punch that one in for now.
And what do you think of? We haven't talked. What do you think of Calvert-Lewin? You're not going anywhere near him at 6.
Nah, 0. Mope's play. I thought what was really interesting from Dyche the other day was that they only made 1 substitution in a friendly. Ashley Young was the only substitution they made. Everybody else played 90 minutes, and you're like, that's Dyche ball. That's exactly what he likes to do. Is I use very little players. I, use and abuse. So yeah, I suspect we're already in the world where he's not thinking that DCL is going to play every week. They're trying to buy, I think it's Bilal Toure, the striker, as well. So they're in the market for a striker. We can't go there. Worcester, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Maybe, but again, they signed Brennan Johnson. Suddenly got another player.
That second striker, it makes me wonder whether going 4-5-1 might be an option. I don't know, and then just work it out later on in the season. It feels inflexible, but
I actually like 4-5-1 better if you want Trent. If you're like really wedded to Trent, I actually think 4-5-1 works better then, because I feel like I just feel like you're not making as many sacrifices in other areas, because obviously, you can have a £5 million defender and it's going to be cheaper than Ferguson and so forth. But you're then moving to a state where you've got 2 non-playing benches, and I'm like, I just don't like it.
It's a bit risky. It's a bit risky, isn't it, early on?
It's a bit risky when we've all seen it, haven't we? Where we all used to think the game before the first game, the last friendly, was like the prestige one, and you'd be able to get that main team and go, well, that's what the team's going to be. But that's not how it works anymore, because most of the friendlies are all, commercial. They're not designed necessarily to be like, this is the best way to set up for game week 1, because there's too much technical stuff into it now. It's all run off red zones and all the rest of it. They know exactly where the players are at, what the shapes are, and they don't want to just show their hand. So there's always something that comes up, and because it's a Friday deadline as well, there's a whole weekend ahead. Man United don't play till the Monday night. I mean, Bruno and Rashford will be fine. But there's time, isn't there? There's time where things can go wrong. The idea of being 4-5-1 and having 2 non-playing strikers.
Yeah, I'm not even comfortable. I've always been a bit of a kind of like, I like to have a full playing bench. I don't really, one kind of dud in there, fodder is even that makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. But it's more, obviously, it's more important around blanks and doubles or whatever the world throws at us in terms of a crisis and and so on. But it's okay when there's 1 game a week and there isn't any European football yet. But 2 is really pushing it. You've got to be if you're going to go two fodders, every single one of your first 11 needs to be nailed. You can't be risking players like Ferguson and others in there that might
Foden,
exactly,
Stones,
exactly.
City,
exactly.
basically.
Exactly. So just have to bear that in mind. Make sure they're all Brunos and Rashfords. So
yeah.
Cool
stuff.
I think we're there.
I think we're there. Just very template defense. I mean, what's your view on Onana? He's only been in the game 4 days. I mean, do you look in there, or do you think it's worth the extra 0.5 over the Pickfords, or are you still 4.5ing on the keeper?
I think if you can afford him, you get him. I think if you can't, Pickford. I think the 4.5s are good, mate. Like you said it about Brentford, fixtures are good. But Pickford's fixtures are brilliant. Like, just watching Brighton again last night did remind me, I'm not against going no Brighton defence, but I just like a Stupinan, so I probably will, and the fixtures are so good. But they just massively commit Brighton forward. I don't think you can go the keepers. Steele played last night, Verbruggen played second half. You're like, nah, I'm not bothering with those ones. So I think it's between Fleck and Pickford and Onana. I'm not contemplating Ederson as yet. Anyone contemplating Ederson?
No.
No, Ederson.
No chance.
I think that's the 3.
Yeah, I haven't put together a new draft since last week. So since Onana's been in the game, I haven't put anything together. So I don't even know what it would look like, where I'm going to make my sacrifice. And this discussion about Ferguson now having me thinking I might need to change that around. Yeah, I haven't looked yet, so I'm not in a position where I can really comment on Onana. We just know what we know, in that he's a good shot stopper. Will United concede as many shots as they did last year? They could. His distribution's excellent. That's been plastered all over Twitter the last week. We know that, and so could he be up in and around the bonus when they keep a clean sheet? Most definitely. More so than De Gea, for sure. So yeah, he's definitely feel like there's more routes to points for Onana over De Gea. Would you have picked De Gea in these first? Because we're looking at. I think you mentioned this last week, right? So Baker, you saying like it could be worth maybe 20 bonus points over a season. Like, what does that mean for the first 8 weeks, right? What does that? Do we expect him to pick them up in those 8 weeks, or are we just going to make an assumption that it's actually only really a quarter of those? So,
I think there's a little bit as well though about the Shaw situation. So most people, when they pick the game up, they put their first draft in, they put Shaw in the team.
Yeah, I did.
Virtually everyone I know put Shaw in the team. And virtually every draft I've seen since Onana's been they'll put in is it enables you to take that out. And you're like, oh, Estupiñán, Trent, Gabriel, nice. Or any other options. So, and then you say, oh, so you find many teams that don't have an Onana or a Shaw or the midfield double up. Because the midfield double up, Bruno, let's just say as a second one, that's also quarter of a clean sheet because he's going to get clean sheet bonus. So if you don't have Onana, you don't have Shaw, and you don't have the midfield double up, like those clean sheets are going to hurt real quick, and they're home to Wolves on that Monday night. Like it suddenly becomes harder to not have him. So when it was just Shaw, I didn't mind it so much. Now there's Onana as well. I'm like, whoa, I kind of like the idea of having one of them. I don't think I'm going to get a huge amount of points out of it, but I kind of like the idea of having one of them. So having Onana feels okay because it's only 5 and it makes the other bits affordable that you could do on this one. So, your one here has got £1 million in the bank here. If you switch Maddison to Mitoma, for example, and you switch Foden to Martinelli or
Bruno,
or you use that money with for Ferguson to Jesus, as you said, you can do all those things, and you haven't really got if Foden in this team here, if you switch Maddison to Matoma and Ferguson to Jesus, and you know that Foden plays that first game against Burnley, where's the weakness in this team?
No,
there's nothing.
Set up correctly. Yeah,
it's an unbelievable first draft for game week 1. Unbelievable. Is there's literally nothing wrong with it, and I think that's where millions of managers are going to end up.
Apart from the other things wrong with it is there'll be 4 or 5 million copies of it on the not of me, but that will be the template that everyone's tweeting out. That will be how everyone just sets and forgets it for game week 1. So you don't need to differentiate it, but you is literally a Peloton team, and that's as long as you're happy with it being a Peloton team, then
yeah.
I prefer the term Peloton team to template. Yeah. I prefer that. I prefer that and those words. Definitely.
Yeah. It makes you stomach it a lot more easy at the start of the season.
It makes you feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, template's such a nasty word. I mean, I just don't like the sound of it.
It's negative. It implies that you are, you're not playing. You're just copying or whatever. So I prefer Peloton because it's strategic. It's tactical. It's supportive.
I like that.
Coin it.
Definitely.
Have you patented that on?
No, not yet. No.
So next tweet when you tweet out a team next. I don't even know if you tweet your team out or anything.
I'm going.
You can call it the Peloton team.
Yeah,
Adam. Right. We're recording now. You've got all the time of YouTube processing. If you literally put your team out now and say I'm changing the word template to Peloton, you can't do nothing. We got it.
It's done.
Nicked it. Cheers, Rich. See you later.
All right.
Right. We will leave it there. We'll leave it there. Rich, that has been honestly a fantastic conversation, really enlightening. And again, kudos to you for those ranks. I mean, I get bored after 17 game weeks, let alone 17 years. So the fact that you've managed to keep this going, I've only had 2 ranks better than your worst rank in my lifetime. And to be fair, the 2017-18 season when you had your best rank, I had my best rank. So I'm going to sort of claim that as a little thing we have in common there, at least.
Good
to make me feel better. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and best of luck for this season again. Definitely want to see you in the upper echelons, top 10k, top 5k. I'm sure you'll push us as hard as you can to get as high as you can. So for anyone living under a rock, do you want to let everyone know where they can find you in all the different places?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please give me a follow. I'm on @RichClarke FPL on Twitter, and I'd love a few more followers. So if you can get me some, guys, that would be great. And thanks very much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. Been copiously making notes. So you've helped sharpen my team up already. So thanks, guys.
Pleasure. And you can also find Rich over at the Green Arrow podcast, which he does every week with Fergie and Adam Hopcroft. And we'll leave you with that. Anything else you want to say, Baker?
Oh, good, mate. See you in the week.
Cool, mate. See you later. Thanks, guys.